Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 65 of the Watch Rolling Podcast. The Watch Rolling Podcast is a veteran owned podcast that focuses on watch enthusiasm and horology with a veteran's point of view, as well as shares valuable veteran resources with the watch enthusiast community. My name is Jason, and I'm your host. If you're new to the pod, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. Watch Rolling Podcast is brought to you by the Anti-Watch Watch Club. AWWC is a 501c3 charity that just releases a ton of stuff in a drop style culture. Nalgene bottles, cool flags like the one you see behind me, t-shirts, hoodies, you name it. And 100% of the proceeds go to help law enforcement, first responders, active duty, any kind of gap that exists to exploit that gap to help people, whether it's with training or housing or, just cancer treatments, travel for medical appointments, you name it. The Anti-Watch Watch Club does that, and they do it through a series, again, of drop culture stuff. And, they do collabs on watches and stuff like that. So I just invite everyone to check them out. The AWWC is an awesome sponsor. They don't give me any money. They just sponsor, and I put the word out for them because I believe in what they're doing. So check out the AWWC at antiwatchclub.com. This week's episode is a very special episode. It is an interview with Ryan, and Ryan is in the Florida National Guard and also has a real job like most people that are in the National Guard, they're reservists. And Ryan has two pretty cool Instagram feeds. One is Watch My Life with a Y, and the other one is UXO or UX Outlaw, both on Instagram. Now, Ryan recently has earned his ACSM CPT, the Certified Personal Trainer certification. And I wanted to bring Ryan's story to you and let you hear him talk because you know how it is. I try to get veterans or people employed. I feel like, work is a good thing and everyone wants to do it, and it'd be nice to have some kind of career. And it's good to hear from people who have accomplished something. And it's maybe a path that you're starting down. So with that, without further ado, I'd like to welcome Ryan to the stream. Hey, Ryan.
Hey, Jason, thanks for having me.
Oh, no, thank you for showing up. I appreciate it. We're recording this on August 10th. It is a Thursday evening, and it is rather muggy where I'm living in Virginia, but how is it down there?
The exact same.
Same
Hot,
thing.
muggy. When you go
Man, it's
outside,
the
you feel
worst.
like you're walking through soup.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Man, I pulled into Seychelles one time. I thought Mississippi was the worst place I'd ever been for humidity.
Mm.
And we pulled into Seychelles one time, and when I walked outside the skin of the ship, I felt like an elephant was sitting on my chest. It was so humid. But then you get used to it, and you're like, "Oh, this is a really beautiful place." So you just kind of, cheap beer and beautiful views will help that out. But
Nice.
yeah. So I just want to say welcome to the show. This is Ryan's first time on. I'm pretty sure you heard the intro what I gave. But before we get started, let's do a wrist check. And you're the guest, so what do you got on your wrist tonight, Ryan?
Got my Zodiac Super Seawolf 53 cream dial.
Yeah, that thing's beautiful.
Trying to not get the flecto there.
Yeah. Everyone likes a little flecto. It looks nice on the bracelet.
Absolutely. I love the OEM bracelet from Zodiac.
It'll make Mike Pearson happy. He's a longtime viewer, no time caller. No, I'm just kidding. He's a first time caller.
Right on. Yeah, I follow him on Instagram. I've messaged with him a couple of times. He seems like a really nice guy.
Yeah, he's down to earth, man. Like he's just he really is a watch enthusiast first that happens to work for Zodiac. I mean, he's a great dude, and I'll have him on one day for an interview on my channel. We've interviewed him on Government Cheese Time, and I interviewed him a couple other times back. But yeah, Mike's always a pretty positive force in the watch enthusiast space, so it's good to have those connections. On my wrist, I have my Marathon left-hand drive, Polar Dial GSAR.
I think it's nice.
Thanks, man.
Speaking of left-hand drive, I'm looking forward to the Notice AWWC release later this month.
Oh yeah, you're gonna get
one of them. I'm gonna try to. I mean, it's gonna be pretty limited, isn't it?
I think the first one was. We can talk after the show. Just we'll talk after the show. We'll have an offline. Like one of my favorite terms people use is we should have a sidebar later. You know what I mean? Like, man, if I had any more sidebars, I'd punch in the face. But no, yeah, it's that's gonna be pretty cool. Is that man? You know what I've noticed? Like, this is gonna get off topic. I don't want to kill the show, but I've noticed that I've been more interested in 4 o'clock crown placements or just the crown not at 3. I'm not a bullnose guy. Crown at 12. But give me a cool crown placement where it actually works with the overall design of the watch, and count me in.
Yeah,
because doing push-ups with a regular crown is kind of annoying.
Yeah, When I first saw it on I think it was the Rolex Sprite, uh, I kind of scratched my head a little bit. I was like, I don't think that one's going to be that popular. But then I saw, other watch companies start to do it, and
Yeah.
you with your Marathon now, and Notice with their Sector Deep, and now I want one.
Yeah.
I mean, leave it to
Yeah, it'll
Rolex
be
to set a trend.
yeah, it'll be worth the wait, man. You'll like it.
Mm.
But again, thank you for coming on. And for everyone here, we I discussed it a little bit in the intro. If you like to highlight some of your professional experience, Ryan, and like I said before, and like every other guest that's actually in the military, share what you feel comfortable sharing. I don't want you to give away too much stuff, but this kind of just leads up to your story as far as what you've done.
Yeah, sure thing. I enlisted in the Army in 2015. Uh, I'm in the signal world of communications, similar to Alex from Army and Time. Um, I'm in the Florida National Guard. That's a reserve component, the 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks a year type of deal.
Yeah.
And on the civilian side, I'm in the auto insurance industry. I've been there
Nice.
since 2017. I graduated from the University of South Florida in the spring of 2017 with a bachelor's degree in economics,
Oh,
and
congratulations.
I appreciate it. And earlier, just a week ago, actually, I finished my personal training certification, my CPT, through the American College of Sports Medicine.
Nice. Nice. Well, congratulations, man. It sounds like you've been pretty busy since 2015.
Yeah,
You've been knocking stuff out.
could say that.
Nice. And economics, what's funny about economics is so my wife and I we both have degrees. But I always tell her like she has real degrees, like their early childhood education and all that stuff, like her master's and all that stuff. And I would consider economics to be one of those real degrees. Like, mine's in criminal justice. I don't know if those ones are really real. I took a stats class once,
Hmm,
but it's not like economics, you know what I mean? But
yeah,
yeah, congratulations.
thanks,
So
brother.
what we're here to really talk about is this achievement of the ACSM CPT certification because it is something I've heard back when I was in before I retired and everything, and I still hear like younger sales talk about it. There are a lot of active duty people that are really into fitness, and they like as more of like I would say like a lifestyle than just like as a fad. It's just part of what they do, right?
Hmm,
And I think to actually get certified in that is taking it another step, right? Like you're either going to go work for someone or you're going to go work for yourself. And I always think like small business owners. Uh, and regardless of whatever field it is, I think that's pretty cool because you're taking a lot on your shoulders and you're kind of like really forging your own destiny. You're putting a lot on yourself, which I think is a great thing to do, especially when you're young. You know what I mean? Like I always tell people don't be like me and wait till like you're 38 to get your life together. Like get it together when you're like 22, 25 or whatever. But so did your day job lead to like this interest in fitness and wellness, or is this something that you've always kind of done?
So, uh, I've always had an interest in weightlifting. Ever since ever since I was a teenager, I was a football player in high school. I was a lot heavier back then. I was on the defensive line, and I was like a blocking tight end. So I would just lift to be like strong and bulky and stuff. And that pretty much continued uh, up until I joined the army. And I knew my way around the gym, but I wasn't in like, army or even really military enlistment kind of shape. I never
Yeah.
ran. I, didn't do sit ups or ever. So in the early days of my army career, I really struggled. I failed 2 out of my 3 PT tests at basic training. That was kind of stressful. And, I kept at it, I kept working, and I passed my third one. Uh, Once I got to AIT and I had like a little bit of free time, I started going back to the gym some more and lifting, but I started to like tailor my workouts and nutrition to be more conducive to like army fitness,
Yeah.
more functional body weight kind of stuff. And, you know, uh, that just carried on. I kept building and researching it. It became, like you said, more of like a lifestyle and something more than a hobby. And at my unit here in the Florida Guard, I became one of the go-to people, so to speak, for nutrition and fitness advice. because being in a reserve component, you get a lot of people that are overweight,
Yeah.
failing tape, that don't exercise as much as they should on the civilian side, and then they show up to our monthly drills or our annual training, and they're struggling, and uh, you know so
Yeah.
and I really enjoyed kind of helping, giving them some advice, working with them from time to
Yeah.
time, and so I figured I might as well use the Army credentialing assistance program and
Yeah.
get my CPT.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, I mean, the research. I always joke around, like people, anyone that's listening to the podcast, I always say like use the stuff that's provided you because if you don't use it, it's going to get taken away.
Hmm.
Especially, I mean, you work too hard when you're in to not like if there's programs that will help you, and all it requires is a little bit of paperwork to fill out, and then you just show up somewhere. You owe it to at least yourself to do that, right? But
Absolutely.
to, but to so to help people like in your command or in your unit, um, you must have like a natural uh, predisposition to want to teach because I think it's a touchy subject, right? Like nutrition and fitness. It's a touchy subject to help someone. Like I've never been a small guy, right? Like I don't know if you saw the pictures from the charity dive event this past weekend. I'm 6'2", like 260, right? I graduated high school, I was like 245. I've gained like 15 pounds in the 30 years since I graduated high school, right?
Mm.
Which I don't think is too bad.
No, that's not bad
You,
at all. That's
you know
what I
what I
was
mean?
just
Yeah.
thinking.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and like, if I get dress shirts, I still have to get them tailored because of my shoulder and chest size. You think I have a huge stomach and I don't have one. So I got to get my shirts tailored in because I have to buy executive size shirts. But anyways,
Mm.
I know that it can be a touchy subject to discuss someone's diet with them, even if they're trying to make improvements, right? Or trying to get healthier. And then especially the fitness part, especially if a person doesn't have a real quote unquote athletic background.
Mhm.
So is that
Abs-
something that you felt was kind of natural for you to to talk with people about?
Yeah, so I wouldn't call myself the most like socially adept person. Like I get kind of awkward and stuff. That doesn't whenever I'm around my uh, fellow members of my unit and stuff, that kind of changes. I'm a lot more comfortable with them and such. So
Yeah.
having that bond to begin with kind of opened the doors a little bit more.
Okay.
But fitness is kind of like watches for me in the sense that I know so much about it that I just take on more confidence when I'm speaking about
Yeah.
it and stuff. So it in that sense, because I came from a place of knowledge, not only from researching it, but also having to deal with it myself. I struggled with PT tests, and there are
Yeah.
things that I did to fix that. And, I was never overweight, but I had to get taped for a long time
Yeah.
in the Army. Like I'd be over the height and weight standards. So they'd be like, all right, step aside. You got to
Yeah.
go with this group and get taped and so on and so forth. But yeah, so teaching that subject specifically, I would say, yeah, that kind of came naturally.
Nice. Yeah, I mean that's pretty awesome, man. Especially, I feel I think it's a good thing that you also give back to your unit because 20 years in the Navy, you see a lot. We have a what do we call it? I can't remember the name. We have like PT people, right? Like the command PT coordinator or whatever. And some of those people are not, they don't have a whole lot of bedside manner. You know what I
Mm,
mean? And it can go horribly wrong. Like keeping it real goes horribly wrong sometimes with the PT stuff.
absolutely. And they'll just be like, come on, just work, or just
Yeah.
eat better and work harder. And it's like,
Yeah.
it's not always that easy, or maybe give them, or maybe they want to work harder and do better. They just don't know how.
Yeah.
28 days out of the month they're at home and they don't have organized PT to show up at and people
Yeah.
to tell them what to do. And yeah, so sharing that knowledge really is important. And uh, eventually I'd like to become a Army MFT, a master fitness trainer.
Mhm.
That's a course up at Fort Jackson. I'd really like to take that, with a reserve component. There's not always funding for those like non-required type of not every unit has to have a master fitness trainer,
Oh,
but
really?
yeah, um,
Oh, that
they're
sounds detrimental to the unit.
yeah, and it's a little bit crazy because you think of how big of a deal
Yeah.
PT is. If you aren't that good at it, you'll get kicked out.
Well, I
So
think it's important too because like the primary image we had, like not this. I'm a sailor. I'm a surface guy, right? Like not a submariner, not an Airedale. I'm a surface fleet like sailor, right? And the one image when I think of the Army, I think of marching, I think of rucking, right? Like it doesn't matter what your job is, you got to put a pack on, you got to carry a weapon. And then if you have an actual job that isn't just killing people, you have to carry that stuff with you, usually,
Oh
especially on
yeah.
a small unit level. You know what I mean? So you think they'd want to have as many of you kind of guys around the master. Oh, when you get the MFT
Hmm.
around.
Absolutely. So that's my unit leadership is very aware that I'd like to attend that training. So if and when the opportunity arises, I'm gonna jump on it right away. But
Yeah, be
hopefully,
like the
fingers
lady in
crossed.
Zero Dark 30, just walk up on the wall and just start marking the number of days you haven't been to MFT school, like
Mhm.
1,250. Yeah, that's I'm telling you, man, like you gotta advocate for yourself, bro. Like
Mhm,
there was schools, you just have to. And
mhm,
speaking about the tape thing, bro, I was a lifetime member of the tape club. I
mhm.
think the Navy said I was supposed to weigh 211 pounds. Like I didn't weigh 211. I stopped around being around 211 like my sophomore year in high school.
Yeah.
And I remember one time on deployment, we had like I think it was '03. Like it was just a really long deployment. Everything was going on in '03. And
Mhm,
I was like, dude, like just meat and veggies and I wasn't eating bread, like water, coffee, like it was just streamlined, right?
mhm.
I got down to like 235, 232.
Yeah, so
I
you're
had
just a bigger
yeah,
frame guy.
yeah, and I had no fat on my stomach, right? And they were like, "Sorry, you got to get taped." And I remember I
Mhm.
walked up to the weigh-in to get taped with my shirt off, and our XO was there, and I'm like, "Sir, like really? Like what what am I getting taped? Like I don't even have anything."
Mhm.
He's like, "Put your shirt back on." I was like, "Oh, thanks. Yeah, good job." Um, so on this road, right? So you got a full-time job, you got the guard, and you're working towards this ACSM CPT certificate. And what's one thing that I'm going to skip to the end real quick because I think what's one thing that earning this has taught you that you didn't expect? Earning the actual certificate.
A couple things, I would if I can.
Oh yeah, take your time.
Number one is if you're gonna take on, that extra obligation, like you said, especially someone in my kind of shoes, where you have a civilian job, you've got part-time military obligations, maybe you've got kids sometimes. I'm married and I've got a dog and a house to take care of. I don't have any kids yet, but you got a lot of obligations already. And if you want just those parts of your life to run ship shape, you need to, put some effort into it. So
Yeah.
you need that time off to recharge. So if you're going to take on that extra obligation of studying and trying to further your education and stuff, it needs to be something that you're at the very least interested in. Better case would be that you actually really want to do something with it professionally.
Mhm.
In 2022, I did a cybersecurity boot camp. It was about 4 months long. It was like two live classes a week and then a lot of self study outside of that. And I completed it. I didn't pass the certification exam. I came relatively close. I did okay for my class, but um, it took. I started
Mhm.
evaluating after because I was like, why didn't I pass this? I went to all the classes. I, studied as much as I was supposed to. I did all the labs and assignments and stuff. And what I came down to was like, I just wasn't interested in it.
Yeah.
I had no, I didn't have the drive to be like, I want to be a cybersecurity analyst.
Mhm.
I just didn't. And if I did, probably would have passed it because
Yeah.
that's exactly what happened with my personal training cert. It took around the same amount of time. Uh, there weren't any live classes, but it required a lot of self study to complete the prep course. And yeah, the only real difference was, and both were free, so I
Oh,
didn't have any money at stake really, unless I failed it. But the only real difference was I have a passion and an interest and uh, personal experience with
yeah.
the fitness side.
Yeah, that's a huge thing. I tell people all the time, especially it might be a little bit different for someone. I mean, I think it applies to anybody, but someone that's separating after like their first tour. First of all, if you're in the Navy, never separate after your first tour. Go to your first shore command, get off a ship, use that time to do something, and then if you want to get out, get out. And then your full enlistment's over, right? But I always tell people, like like you bring up a valid point. Don't if you've done 20 years, if you've done 8, if you've done 4, don't just take whatever is available. Like figure out early what it is you want to do, and then acknowledge the fact it might take some hard work. Cause like, if you want to be a brain surgeon, it's probably going to take longer than a year of your enlistment to get done. You know what I mean? So like you said, balance your schedule, take a look at your schedule, make sure it's something you care about or something you want to do and that you have a plan to do something with it when you get out. I think it makes those long nights and the when you I can speak from experience when your wife goes to bed and you're still up writing papers.
Mm.
It makes that grind that much more worth it, you
It
know?
does, and it makes you a lot, you know, you'll consider that time like I did with the cybersecurity thing. If you devote all that time and effort and then you don't pass it, I mean, you're going to be pretty mad, or,
Yeah.
you, so make sure it's something that you're going to be willing to sacrifice your free time for.
Yeah. And it's a real like, it's funny that it's not funny, but how you mentioned your confidence was speaking about watches and about fitness, right? Like it's a real thing. If this is something that you want to do and you put in X amount of hours, I always tell people, um, stop and take stock of what you've done, right? Like don't rest on your laurels. But when you're done with this, like when you get that like certificate or your whatever it is you want to get, stop and look at it for like 10 minutes. Pour yourself a tasty beverage, whatever it is you want. Like, I don't care. It could be freaking iced tea, whatever. Sit down with that thing, pour yourself an iced tea or whatever the hell, and tell yourself, I did a really freaking good job, and then and
Absolutely.
then put it on the wall and go do something else. Right. But I mean, I think so many times people, accomplish stuff and they're so worried about getting it that they don't stop and actually enjoy the moment. And a lot of times that moment, no matter how short it is what you remember and you don't remember the grind as
Absolutely.
much,
Yeah, that's pretty much the period I'm in now where I just finished the certification like a week ago. I've been kind of riding pretty high since then, and it's because I'm in that, I'm enjoying that sense of accomplishment that, I worked hard at something for
Yeah.
several months and I got it and I'm happy to have it. And eventually I'm gonna, like you said, start pushing ahead and doing what I need to do to actually start, earning some money from this. But for now, I'm just enjoying having that beverage and looking at
Yeah.
the completion certificate.
You should, man. Congratulations. It's pretty awesome.
Thanks, brother.
So you said you had a couple things. Was it another thing that this whole path taught you that you didn't expect, or was that like kind of all of them wrapped up?
Uh, more that was more like big picture
Mhm.
lesson that I learned. But when it comes to, you said there's a lot of people out there interested in the personal training cert. I honestly, when I was filling out my paperwork to get the army money to pay for this, I had to kind of itemize it and I added the exam. Of course, you have to have that.
Yeah.
But when it came to being like, do I want the prep course? Do I want these extra study materials and stuff? Because I honestly considered like just taking the exam based on my experience and knowledge that I had from like a hobbyist level.
Yeah.
I was like, I've been doing this for double digit years now. I've been in the gym. I know what I'm doing. Maybe I can just take the exam. And I was very wrong. I'm
Yeah.
happy that I chose to ignore that thought and get the prep course and do that because there's a lot more to it than you might expect. I think because there are a fair amount of like younger people who might be in college that are also personal trainers.
Yeah.
They might think, it doesn't take that much studying or time, but there was a lot to it. There's a lot of like medical and health science type of knowledge that
Yeah.
you need to learn. You need to learn how to just, for example, deal with like a client comes to you who's pregnant and presenting symptoms of like cardiovascular disease. What do you do? Like, how do you do their intake paperwork and stuff? And I would have quit taking the exam right there if I had not
Oh
taken the
wow.
prep course and been like, I have no freaking idea. Like, do I tell them to go see a doctor? Or do I, just treat them
Yeah.
like any other client? I mean, I've absolutely no clue. So there, there is a good, for anyone looking at personal training specifically, even if you are pretty adept when it comes to personal fitness and stuff, I'd highly recommend you take the prep course for whatever vendor you're going through.
Nice. I'm pretty sure there's like 10 million PE teachers that all tune into my show who are like yelling at the screen going, "Yeah, he's right." Because
Mm,
like in school they always try to, would mix PE with like health,
yeah.
and then like all of us are like, "No, I just want to go lift, man." I just
Yeah,
want to go lift. And you're like, no, you really need this health class. So that's
yeah,
kind of good to know. So do you think
absolutely.
that would have been the biggest common myth about getting this path completed? Like that you can just free wheel it and go in?
Yeah, that or maybe just the general like yeah, I'll get my personal training start. How long is that going to take? Like, a few weeks. It's like no, it you know, if especially if you've got other stuff, other full-time obligations in your life, be prepared to set aside a good 3 or 4 months at least, and that's if you can devote 5+ hours a week
Yeah.
to the prep course and stuff. I took the long route. I think I from the time I started the prep course to completed the exam, it was about 7 months.
Oh wow.
But yeah.
Man, that's cool. That's it's an investment in yourself though, man.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like I can't stress that enough to anyone that watches this or takes any lesson from any of the interviews I do. All that you guys, almost all of you have like a common theme is that however you've gotten to where you're at now, it wasn't easy and it required a lot of hard work, but it's an obvious investment in yourself, right? Like you bet on yourself, it paid off. And I think that's kind of good. Well, not kind of good. I think it's actually really good.
Most
Um,
definitely.
so all this stuff going on, right? Like, doing your stuff and everything. What do you think was the biggest challenge in earning this certification? And how did you tackle that challenge? Like, what did you do to like punch that challenge in the face?
Uh, Budgeting your time. So I did it through the credentialing assistance program through the Army. It's like tuition assistance, but you can use that pot of money, the federal money, to
Mhm.
go after certifications and certificates rather than full-on degrees. And when you're setting up, when you're applying for it, saying, I want to do personal training, I want to do it through this vendor, I want to buy the prep course and the exam voucher, it asks you, okay, when's your target start date and when's your end date? I'd say be realistic with your timeline, especially if you're kind of like me and you've got a lot of domestic obligations. Once again, I did all this and I don't have kids, and there's plenty of people out there like you said that might be starting a little bit later, or they're younger and they already have kids, and I can only imagine how much time they suck up
Yeah,
on top of everything else, civilian obligations, or if someone's active duty. I mean, your days are never the same, so you might have a short day one day, you're home in like 7 or 8 hours, but then you have those long ass days where you're putting
yeah,
double digit hours in because the work's just not done. So be realistic with your I had to really be realistic and be like, I do have a lot going on. So I gave myself 8 months to do it. I
nice.
said that my target start date's going to be in January. I look to be done with it in mid-August, and that turned out to be like the exact right amount of time that I needed. So uh, don't expect to do it soon. Don't rush yourself. This is, like you said, if you're going to invest in yourself, give yourself the time to actually learn this. And if you've got a lot going on at that point in time, maybe put it off just a little bit. Keep it on your radar. Keep learning what you need to do
Yeah,
to enter that program or a prep course, what have you, and just keep it on the back burner just for now until your life gets a little bit less busy, or till you can maybe fine tune your schedule to allow
yeah.
that. But so what I did is I work a 4-day a week schedule at my civilian job. Uh, so I have 3 days a week off, and at least 2 of those days I would put in an hour and a half of work, sometimes all three,
Oh, nice.
because the modules are like in varying lengths. So I couldn't say like I'm gonna finish this one module because a module might take 30 minutes, the next module might take 2.5 hours.
Oh, wow.
So rather than say I'm gonna finish X amount of modules, I would just say like, all right, I'm going to put in a total of at least 3 hours a week. I'll give myself one day that's just totally off of everything so I can, get a little R&R. But that's how I did it.
Yeah, it's awesome, man. Because and it lines up with the age old saying that you can only eat an elephant one bite at a time. Because
Mhm.
I've had people that are like in a degree program and they're like, oh, I'm going to take the whole this whole semester off, and I would always recommend them like, look, I get it. At least read some stuff that's going to maintain your knowledge for when you go back.
Yeah.
Like read for enjoyment about what it is that you're doing, and there's no assignments, there's no test, there's no due dates, right? But you keep that stuff fresh in your brain. and like you said, you keep that attachment to what it is that you're going to
100%.
do,
Yeah,
because I
because
think a lot of times it's that stress from the milestones that you got to
there's
do.
that there's the expression like brain dump. And
Yeah.
when you say it like that, it makes it sound like it's intentional. Like, I don't want to learn this. I'm sitting through this brief. I'm gonna brain dump it later. It sounds like it's an intentional thing. It's not. Your brain will dump stuff if you're not using it. Like the things that you learn are perishable. So
Yeah.
if
No,
you
exactly.
take too much time off, you will forget. So yeah, that's really good advice.
So you it's a good word, intent, right? Um, can you talk about frame of mind, like when you started? Like, were you like intent on doing this? And if not, is it something you developed over time? But if it was something, was there anything that you did to like really lock in that? Because I think that's a very military thing. Like you know something's not going to be the greatest, right? The process, but you know it's going to be pretty good when you're done,
Yeah.
and you lock in. Like, what'd you do?
So I was very intent on first off learning this as best as I could, dedicating myself to it, because when I started it, I was just a couple of months removed from failing that cybersecurity exam. And after, devoting about 4 or 5 months in total to prepping for it and taking that boot camp course and stuff. And, afterwards, I did I don't know if they might call it something different in the Navy, but an AAR, an after action report. Like
Okay.
you,
Yeah. Yeah.
so after a big training event, we'll always sit around and be like, all right, how did it go? What do we do right? What do we need to improve for next time? What are some suggestions for next time? So I kind of did a self AAR on
Yeah.
that. And I was like, why did I fail this? What's the real problem? And what I kind of determined was I just wasn't that interested in it. I put forth the effort, I completed it. I didn't, drop out in the middle or anything, but I just wasn't that motivated to do it. So I was like, if I'm gonna uh, tackle another bit of education on my own, it's got to be something I'm interested in. So I found this. I learned that the Army would pay for it through credentialing assistance. And so I was like, okay, that's something I want to do. And I just went at it with that. Earlier on this year, I was pretty dead set on leaving my civilian job. It had reached a point. I was just pretty unhappy there.
Yeah.
Um, I will become vested at my civilian job later this month. So my plan was to finish my cert around this time that I would be
Mhm.
vested and basically just, you know, kick the door open and leave
Yeah.
as soon as I finish my personal training cert and start doing this full time. Uh, in the last couple of months, that's changed a little bit. Things have improved somewhat at my civilian job, so I'm not so much beating down the door to leave anymore. Um, and I'm taking kind of a slower approach to, integrating the personal training profession into my life. But I'm gonna, you know, pretty soon I'm gonna be taking like a first aid, CPR, AED
Oh, nice.
certification, which is something that you need to
Mhm.
professionally train people. And so I'm working my way towards it. But it's kind of evolved and transformed. But the one thing that was constant in my mindset from the beginning was like, I enjoy this. I would definitely be, I'd be a lot happier doing this as a job than I would be doing my current civilian job. And those things never changed. I still believe those fully. I'm just not as eager as I was to leave my civilian
Yeah.
job, I guess.
It's funny that you bring up how these plans change and morph over time. Because I have a buddy of mine who um he went to culinary, like he retired, E8 senior chief in the Navy,
Mm.
and the guy's always been really capable. Like he can like car audio, he can woodwork. Like I could do anything, right? He put a freaking propane, like professional propane fire pit in his backyard, and it looks like he paid someone to do it. It's insane. But my point is, he went to culinary arts. He went to culinary school, got his culinary arts degree just to be a better cook at home. He went to the automotive school and like learned how to paint, car electronics, all that stuff, right?
Well,
Just to like work on his motorcycle and his trucks.
mm,
Because he has a full-time J job, but he's like, hey, I learn all this stuff. I'm going to do it all the time for myself. Who knows what I'm going to do when I retire from my now civilian job? So it's just interesting to see, to hear you already see that, you can tell that this plan's kind of morphing for you and you're just kind of going with the flow.
Mhm.
to see where it takes you, because I think that you might actually end up with like a for yourself a much cooler idea of what it is you want to do with this than what you first thought. You see the possibilities as you do it more and more.
Yeah, absolutely. That's 100% accurate.
Pretty cool. Um, so did you have any mentors in this process of earning your CPT?
Yeah, absolutely. A good friend of mine from pretty much the only friend from high school that I still keep in touch with. I'm 33 now, so when the further removed you get from high school, you kind of they start to fall away. They
Yes.
move. You're go to college at different places. You might join the military and go like far, far, far away from them.
Yeah.
But she's pretty much the only friend I still keep in touch with from high school. Her name's Teresa. Um, as a student, she kind of struggled in high school. She had some domestic issues going on at home and stuff. She like barely graduated. I think she actually ended up dropping out and going to like adult high school to get her diploma and stuff.
Nice.
But
I'm an adult high school graduate.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah. Good stuff.
it's, mhm. But she just worked kind of miscellaneous jobs, and eventually she found her way to the fitness industry. She started working at a gym, just like front desk kind of stuff,
Mhm.
and made her way into higher up roles. She ended up being a manager, and she got her personal training cert.
Oh, wow.
And for the last several years now, she's owned and operated her own training business in the Central Florida area. That's what she does full time. She has lots of clients. She does all kinds of stuff. She does more like traditional personal training. She does it for elderly people. She's got a lot of
Oh,
experience
wow.
doing that. She's trained a few MMA fighters. She's got a few different belts and a few different types of martial arts.
Oh, wow.
So I mean, she's constantly just building herself up, like getting more certifications, getting more like specialized experience and stuff. So she's been a mentor as far as not just uh, getting the certification itself, but like on the business end too, being like,
Yeah.
okay, I've got my cert. Now what? I had no clue that I needed to be like AED certified to actually
Mhm.
start training people and stuff. She was the one to be like, okay, well, you got your cert. Are you first aid certified? Like, you're going to need that next. And she has been, is, and hopefully will continue to be my mentor as I kind of figure out all the different aspects of this. So thanks very much to her.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, shout out Teresa, wherever you are in
Mhm.
Central Florida. No, that's awesome, man, especially when you mentioned the note about, some business classes or whatever. You said, the business side of it. That's something I tell a lot of people, 'cause I don't know how it is in the I know the Army is a little more specialized than the Navy, but, the Navy, we have ratings, which is the equivalent of your guys' MOS, but we do a lot more, like, multitasking only because we can't put an Army amount of people on board a ship,
Yeah.
right? You have
Mhm.
to be able to do more than one thing.
Sure.
So you get a lot of people that are mechanics or they're welders or they're, electricians or, whatever they wanna do. And, that's what they wanna do, but they forget there's a business side. Like, when you get out and do that, you're gonna open a business, you're gonna, like, know how to account finances and stuff, right? And you hear a lot of stories about them. People will go bankrupt or they'll have something crazy happen because they didn't take care of the accounting. So I think that's a great point that you bring up, because I would recommend, and I'd be interested if you recommend, like, just take enough basic business courses to where you don't screw yourself when you start your business when it comes to taxes or whatever.
Absolutely. If I can, uh, what do you call it? Not to go off topic, it's definitely related, but there's an organization called Hire Heroes
Oh yeah.
who works with veterans, and they're nonprofit, and uh, they're really excellent. I've been connected with them for a while, and even if you're not like actually applying for jobs, or if you're just changing careers and you're kind of doing it on your own,
Mhm.
like I am, and like the people listening, people are talking about and stuff. If you're handling most of the education stuff, but you just don't know like how to do it. Like in my situation,
Yeah.
like I've got the cert. Soon I'll have my first aid and whatnot. But then do I just go like start applying to be a personal trainer at gyms? What if I want to own my own personal training business? Do I need to buy a gym? Like,
Yeah.
do I how does this even work? So they will connect you with a mentor in whatever field or as closely
Yep.
related field as they can, who will it's a fellow veteran always, and they'll take the time to walk you through that sort of stuff. So if there's not someone personally that who can
Mhm.
mentor you to whatever career path that you want, get connected with Hire Heroes. You got to, apply, so to speak. They won't like deny you or anything, but they need some background info on you to kind of put you in the right place and with the right people, and they can definitely hook you up with a mentor.
That's awesome. No, I covered Hire Our Heroes. I don't remember the episode number, but in one of my older episodes, I covered Hire Our Heroes, and I've also had a retired Navy captain who used a slightly different program, American Corporate Partners. When I listen to them, it sounds like they're more catered to like higher ranking people. But I'll tell you right now, Ryan, when you get done with the Hire Our Heroes thing, or when you're close to getting done, I'd love to have you back on to get a firsthand experience about this, because it's a program that sounded awesome when I read about it, and it would be nice to have someone who's actually experienced the program just get on for an hour and talk about it. We can do that if you would be open to that invitation, because I
Absolutely,
feel
man.
like I feel like that's the biggest thing, bro. That is the biggest thing for all of us, is that military people, we are accustomed to, and it's not everybody. We're a microcosm of society, but the majority of us will be like bang, 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 knock stuff out,
Hmm.
right? But most of us look to some kind of, and not even like leadership, like yes sir, kind of, or
Hmm.
yes ma'am, kind of leadership. No, we just look like natural leadership to learn under, to mentor under, to eliminate that. We can shorten the curve for mistakes,
Yeah,
right? There's no need for me to make the mistake if I can talk to someone who's already made that mistake and they're willing to teach me about it. So I think programs like Hire Our Heroes are awesome, because that's literally what they do. Someone sat in a room one day and said, "You know what? We should just have a bunch of mentors, so
yeah,
Steve over here doesn't buy the wrong kind of chicken for his chicken
right,
farm." You know what I mean? Like, and then
yeah.
Steve's like, "Yeah, man, my chicken farm's great because I didn't buy these chickens or whatever." And
Hmm.
so I would love to have you on. And don't ever worry about going off, because trust me, we can. This is a watch podcast that talks about resources. And the podcast itself doesn't make any sense. But so by all means, if you have something insightful to share, by all means, I encourage sharing it, because that sounds like a really good program, and I'd love to talk to you about it later.
Yeah,
But
most definitely. We'll tackle that in another episode for sure.
yeah. So here's one thing. So do you have a tool that you used earning this cert that you think is indispensable? Like if someone was going to start it, you're like, you need to get this thing, and you need to get it from the get go.
It would definitely be the prep course for me.
Okay.
Um, that was like the meat and potatoes that just teaches you everything that's covered in the exam, and you can navigate back and forth. Once when you're initially completing the modules, you have to do it in a certain order. But once you're done with it, you can go back and forth. You can pick through like sub lessons and stuff.
Hmm.
And I did that quite a bit in the last few weeks, like leading up to me taking the exam. That was invaluable. And like I said, from very early on, like when I was filling out the paperwork, I was like, maybe I could just get through this exam. I know a lot about this. But like from the first module, I was like, crap, there's a lot I don't know, like that I apparently need to know to
Yeah.
do this. So that prep course was my lifeline. Absolutely.
Awesome. Was it super expensive? I mean, the army paid for it, right?
Right. So you get $4,000 a year for tuition
Oh, wow.
assistance, and the uh, credentialing assistance is under that same umbrella. It comes from the same pot of money. Um, for American College of Sports Medicine, the prep course I think was $379,
Oh,
and
wow.
the exam voucher was another like 150, I
Mhm.
believe. And it's all when you do it through the army, it's all tax free. So that's like the exact amount it
Oh,
was.
nice.
Um, Through the army, we use a website called Army Ignited, and the ed at the end is like capitalized for education.
Yeah,
Yep. But that's where you do all of your like applications for tuition
nice.
assistance, credentialing assistance, and all that good stuff. They're pretty good about messaging you back if you do have any questions, because
Oh, nice.
the newer army websites, they've been like kind of revamped and stuff. Like they're using Microsoft Teams now and all that stuff. I kind of equate it to an Android phone versus an iPhone. Like the Android can do a lot more, but it's a
Yeah,
little overwhelming and it's not as user
yeah,
friendly. It's like there's so much here that I just there's a million directions I could go in. But
yeah.
whatever contractors or whoever are running the Army Ignited site, I've had good experiences with them. If
Oh,
I
nice.
send them a message, they're really good about getting back to me. So anyone out there listening who's army specific, whether you're on active duty or in a reserve component, don't be afraid to just shoot them a message, just like, contact
Oh,
us, need
nice.
help, whatever. Just be like, I don't know what I'm doing, and they'll help out.
That's great, man. Did you ever use Army Knowledge Online?
Yes.
Did you use the first one or the second one? Because I heard there was a second one.
Uh, I'm not too sure. I came in
Okay.
2015, and I used it quite a bit actually when I was in AIT. We had a lot of like spare classroom time, so to speak,
Yeah.
where we had like already covered the material, but because of regs and stuff, we weren't
Right.
allowed to like advance to the next uh, part of the course until like
Yeah.
Monday or whatever. So we would just be sitting around class, like twiddling our thumbs. It was in a secret facility, so we couldn't bring our phones.
Yeah.
So that just left me to, the army desktops with like secure internet. So I could really only go to like government websites. So I would pull
Yeah.
up Army Knowledge Online and just be like, what courses do they have on here? I did a bunch of silly little ones like Introduction to Ammo was one of them. And it
Nice.
just had this really goofy, cheesy kind of animation
Yeah.
videos of guys like in ACUs with they looked like the characters from the original GoldenEye on Nintendo 64. They're just all like weird, like kind of constipated looking faces
Yeah.
and
Did they have a
just
cool soundtrack? It was like dum, 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 dum.
no, most of them had no noise. Actually, it would just be a
Oh,
guy in ACUs just walking around showing you the proper way to carry ammo in a box
nice.
or whatever.
I,
But
I
yeah,
asked that question because when I was in Iraq in '07, I was part of a joint unit, and I had a specialist who is now a sergeant first class. Shout out Luis. I'll just leave it at that. He knows who he is.
well,
No, his name, yeah, yeah. He tried to get me to say who, and I told him, I said I'll never say that as long as I live, but I just did. But anyways, not only did this guy tell the best stories I've ever heard in my life, this guy was the best storyteller, man, about like his life growing up. But one day he's on the computer and he's just like whizzing around, like doing all this stuff, and I'm like, he's a supply guy. I'm like, Luis, man, what's going on? What are you doing? He's like, oh, chief, I'm using the Army Knowledge Online. So I was already upset because they sold us Navy Knowledge Online, right? NKO. And it was gonna be life changing. NKO was. And I'll put it to you as short and sweet as possible. Everything that I was supposed to be able to do on Navy Knowledge Online, this E4 could do on Army Knowledge Online and more. And they never fixed ours. They eventually just got rid of it. Like it was the most user unfriendly thing of all time. So this is all leading into this question. Normally I asked a person what their biggest pet peeve is, but since you, with regards to their field, but since you just earned your certificate, I don't think you haven't had enough time to learn a pet peeve of a PT client.
That's fair
I
to
don't
say.
want to get you in trouble with your civilian company and ask you what your biggest pet peeve with car insurance clients is, because I feel like that's a dead end street that can only get you in trouble. So, if you could offer one recommended piece of advice to the ACSM CPT people for their course, like one area to like bolster up or improve, not necessarily negative, or something maybe they didn't consider that they would like to consider, would you have a piece of advice for them?
Yeah, the grammar on some of the downloadable like handouts and the slides and stuff was just a little off. Exactly I can't think of an exact example, but it would just be weird stuff. It would make you like triple take. It'd be like, am I reading this right? Like they just put a word that didn't exactly belong, or they'd forget
Yeah,
to use some punctuation. It didn't happen that often, but it happened often enough that it definitely stuck out. And I'd say,
yeah,
maybe have go over your lessons with spell check one more time or
yeah.
something, and
Do you think they had
just
AI do it?
it wouldn't surprise me. It was because it was good for the most part, but like I said, it happened realistically maybe like 5 or 6 times throughout the
Yeah.
course, which was like 16 modules. So not that often, but enough times to be like that someone needs to look at that. That's a little.
Yeah. No, it can interrupt a person's learning flow, especially if, you're one of the people whose primary methods of learning is from reading, right? Because there are people
Yeah.
that are active learners. There's people that are, that read. I mean, there's all different kinds of learning styles. I don't want to get into that, but
Mm.
um it can really screw up with someone up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially in flow. So, you've done all this, you've earned your certification. Now there's some personal questions, right? Like I want the watch fan to get to know Ryan, right? On
Right.
this journey. And so is there any specific piece of media, whether it's I know I shouldn't call it book media, but it was media a long time ago. Is there like a specific piece of media that you'd like to recommend to my audience? And if so, why? Like a book, a podcast, a video series, a what, whatever.
I can recommend a few. Um, the book that I've gotten the most from, that I've read a few times now, is a classic, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale
Uh,
Carnegie. As I
yeah,
mentioned earlier on, I can get kind of nervous talking to people that I don't know and stuff. I know that's a lot more common these days with adults and stuff. It's for the longest time that was a little bit like, how old are you? 30? You can't talk to people. What the hell? Like, but it's people get, like social anxiety and generalized anxiety disorder. I'm not diagnosed with either of those, but it's just I'm not comfortable talking to everybody, especially if it's someone I don't know, I've never approached. I don't know
yeah,
what their personality type is like. But that book will teach you everything from, small talk with someone that you haven't met before to, having in-depth conversations with like someone higher up, which is especially valuable. You never know when you're going to run into people like that in the military. In my experience, it doesn't happen as often on the civilian side, but it's a great book. I've learned a lot from it. I keep rereading it because I just, you know, can never be
yeah.
reminded of that stuff enough. Um, when it comes to fitness, there's kind of a podcast that I don't think has that big of a following, but it should. It's called the Loco Fit Show. It's LOCO Fit. It's by a woman named Lauren Conlon. She's an IFBB pro bodybuilder. She's a trainer. She has her own coaching business. She's got a Master of Science in exercise science
Oh
from
wow.
the University of South Florida. That's kind of how I was first exposed to her, is because we went to the same school. But so she owns a coaching business, but her podcast a lot of the times goes more into the mental side of training and how it can aid or maybe get in the way of your fitness goals. She
Okay.
talks about like personal accountability, anxiety, relationships, behavior changes, and it really is insightful. She's a very scientific, intellectual kind of person, but I think she does a good job of kind of, you know, translating it to layman and
Mhm.
making it so everyone can understand it.
That's a skill, man. It's
Mm,
a skill. It's a we joke around like I think in the army you call them senior NCOs, but like I think it's a skill that gets lost on people. Like sometimes you got to translate officer
mhm,
to junior enlisted, and sometimes you got
absolutely.
to translate junior enlisted to officer.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's a skill in the civilian world that pays dividends, especially I think in a small business aspect.
Mhm.
I don't know how many companies are paying for that, but for her, like to have her own business and to be a pro and be able to turn around to a group of people and be like, no, look, this is very heady stuff, but you break it down into like nice little grilled cheese sandwiches that everyone can eat, you know?
I imagine that sort of thing's got to be invaluable for you. You said you have project management.
Yeah, I've man, I tell you what, bro, I've done so much different stuff. Um, we talked earlier about like kind of like knowing your strengths and you talk about like doing what you like to do.
Mm,
And I learned early on that I just like to do, right? And
okay.
I can I can pick up lots of stuff pretty quick, right? Um, I just like to keep busy. So what I do is I've always kind of been around project management because I'm a very literal cat, right? And there's always projects to manage. I don't care what project it is. I will get in, I will learn it, I will learn that stuff. And from more about confidence in my own ability and less about other people, I will do a really, really freaking good job, you know,
Mm,
if the money's right.
yeah.
The money ain't right, I'll
Mm,
go somewhere else. But my happiness is being able to just do. And it can be bad sometimes, but
yeah.
it's I have that ability slightly though to take stuff and translate it to different. But I mean, in the Navy as a firefighter, like I don't know how it is in the Army. I'm sure it's like being a rifle, shooting in the Army or whatever. In the Navy, everyone's a firefighter, right? So I have to be able to, I had to be able to train everybody, regardless of where they're from, their educational experience, et cetera, on how to fight fires and understand their positions. So, I had to understand everyone's roles and then be able to explain to them why they were important to the team and they had to do what they had to do.
Yeah.
And I had to quickly assess, like, is this person from, the South? Is this person from the Northeast? Is this person from the Northwest? Is this person from Guam? Is this person from the Philippines? Like, we have people from all over the place. And if I can only talk to like one group of people, I mean, I'm really screwing the crew on learning what they need to do to save the ship and protect themselves and each other. Right. So I took that really
Yeah.
seriously as far as communication. And it's obvious I don't stop running my mouth. So,
Not at all.
you know what I mean?
Now,
That's
I'm
kind of
a
like where I come from with it.
yeah, I'm a relatively new NCO. I got E5 earlier this year.
Nice.
Thanks, man. Um,
Congratulations.
I appreciate it. So I was the Florida National, or the National Guard in general, I guess you could say, works in a weird way where the state will just kind of move you around to different slots. You'll still be doing like your job most of the time, your MOS or your rate, but they might say like, okay, well, you know what? The leadership slot on this team is vacant. We're just going to take this guy that's just like low man on the totem pole and just like move him up into that slot. And you won't know a lot of the times until, you show up for something and they're like, oh, okay, you're the team leader now. So you need this piece of gear. And I'm like, wait, I'm the team. What are you talking about? Like, why? I'd never needed this gear before. Like, why do I need this special weapon or whatever? Like, what's going on? Uh, but essentially, as a specialist, I was a team leader for a long time, but I didn't have anyone else on my team. So I was just like the de facto team
Yeah.
leader. So I was used to doing everything myself for the most part. I'd beg and borrow some help here and there. But uh, now, as an NCO, I actually do have Joes under me. And
Yeah.
something I'm having to kind of let go of, not entirely, because I am still
Yeah.
enlisted, and we are a small team, so I can't afford to just stand around and point and be like, "You guys do this."
Yeah.
But I am having to let go of more like I have to delegate some,
Yeah.
and that's not the easiest thing for me to do. I'm
No.
so used to just doing the work, like you're saying. Like I know how it needs to be done. Why can't I just do it?
Yeah.
But I wouldn't be doing right as a leader to my lower enlisted guys if I you know, just did it all myself. Like they need to
Yeah.
learn that stuff if I'm not there for some reason.
E5's like the gold rank, because no, you're not really in charge. Like, you're not in the Navy, you're not super in charge of everybody, but you kind of are. But they always go
Mm,
to the E6 for the answers.
yeah.
But you can still be around everyone. So like when maintenance is getting done or whether stuff's being done, you can be right there hand in hand, like showing and teaching.
Mm,
Um, E6 is where you got to kind of draw that line and take a bigger step back.
yeah.
Because if you're in there with your hands all the time, you're losing situational awareness, and you
Right.
know it sucks. It's real hard.
Yeah.
Unless you never really like doing maintenance like me. I never
Yeah.
really like doing maintenance. I
Mm,
try to advance as fast as possible because I'm like, I really hate freaking doing maintenance. But
mm.
I understand the importance of maintenance. So, it's not something I ever sloughed off or anything. No,
That's a good way.
congratulations, bro. E5 is awesome, man. Sergeant.
Thanks, man. Yeah. That's a good way of looking at it. Is like you're kind of somewhere in the middle. Like you're not
Yeah.
quite like the guy that needs to be in his office all the time, but you can teach and give answers, but still get some hands on and do that work with your team.
Yeah. You'd be surprised, man. Like, I think it would be impossible to quantify what an E5 can do on a day-to-day basis. Cause if they're doing, the troops are doing work on something and you notice something's not quite right, you'd be like, oh, well, I know, this tool, does this tool works a little bit better and we put a feedback report in or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, you can improve the process and also make things safer for them in the long run. And they may not even know it, you know, but then if they stay in, they pass that down and then you just help create a good line of knowledge for a long, long time.
Mm,
Eh, Have a lot of impact at E5 level if you want to.
sure.
And I think it's a little more, they still look at you like as one of the homies.
Yeah.
You're
That's
not
fair.
far, you're not far removed from the E4 mafia, but,
Yeah.
but you're not in the E4 mafia anymore. You know what I mean?
No.
Um, oh man, this stuff's it's been great. It's been great, Ryan. Listen, this one of my favorite questions to ask at the end because I try to have watch enthusiasts on. Um, I feel like we're a varied and diverse group. Watch enthusiasm is what unites us, but we all are doing crazy different stuff, right?
Mhm.
But what is your grail piece?
So, my longtime Grail piece was a Breitling old Navitimer, A13322, I think is the reference. Uh, I'd lusted after that watch for a long time. I saw it in a movie when I was like 10 years old.
Nice.
And before I knew anything about watches and something, it wasn't even like that good of a movie. I've rewatched it as an adult and I'm kind of like, this isn't that good.
Which movie is it?
The Skulls with
Yeah, dude. That was good.
saw that like their initiation scene where they're like
Yeah.
passing them out watches and stuff, and
Yeah.
it's that watch. But my wife got that for me for our 10-year anniversary earlier
Oh
this year.
wow.
So
Congratulations.
I appreciate it, man.
That's
Um,
awesome.
but now that I have that, I think my grail is a Rolex Explorer 14270.
Mm,
Uh, it was in production for a long time in like different
yeah.
variants, but I'd probably want to go for a birth year one because
Okay.
they made that in 1990, which is when I was
Awesome.
born. So yeah, I think if I had one of those, I'd probably stop buying watches for a while. Not just for financial reasons, but
Yeah.
you know. What
No,
about
it's
yourself?
oh man. You know, it's interesting. I I developed this tiered grail system to lie to myself, right? When I first started when I first started watching watch enthusiast stuff, I was like, I'll have a 0 to $500, 501. I think it was 501 to 1500 or something, and then 1500 to 2500, 2500 to like 2501 to like 5000, and then 5000 and above. And what quickly happened is I started systematically, because this is how my brain works. I give myself a challenge and I systematically knock them out.
Mm,
So it was a Seiko Blue Lagoon, which I've since sold. I love that watch. It was beautiful. Um, but that led to like six samurais, of which I've all sold them off.
mm,
It's probably my favorite case shape, and just aesthetically what you get. It's just a solid little package. And then the Marathon TSAR was one. I got that and moved it, and now I have my GSAR. But I think if I'm going to shoot for like grail, right?
mm,
Um, I have one now. My Grand Seiko, that SBGX 335. I joke it's the grail I never knew I wanted, because I had so much experience with Seiko
mm,
that I knew I wanted to say Grand Seiko Diver. And when I saw that one, I was like, oh man, it's a no date quartz. And the quartz is awesome. It's a beautiful quartz movement, the
mm,
design and function and all that stuff. And so that's my grail that I own. If I'm being honest, and I've never seen it in person. So I think if I see it in person, it might not be my grail anymore. But I always say the Rolex Explorer 2. I don't even care which model, if I'm being brutally honest.
mm.
But if I had like a huge grail, like a big grail, the Vacheron Constantine Overseas Everest dual time.
Everest. I think I've seen that. Is that the with like the orange GMT hand?
Yes, and the
Yep.
gold rotor,
And
Mount Everest on it.
yep.
That thing just captured my imagination from the first time I saw it. But yeah, it's pretty cool. That would be like my big grail. Like, and I think at that point, like, you have to wear that all the time. Like, you can't.
Yeah.
It's freaking $33,000, right? Like,
Yeah.
what am I going to do? Put that in my
You
watch box and
better wear
wear
it all the
my
time.
yeah. I'll wear my Mill Sub mod. Sorry, guys,
Mm.
can't wear my overseas, because I got to wear this Mill Sub mod.
Yeah.
I
Uh,
think
was it Grand Seiko? They
yeah.
do quartz on like a whole nother level. I
Oh
mean,
yeah,
they talk about like Rolex. They say like, oh, they have a foundry, so they smelt their own gold and their own
yeah,
steel and rose gold and stuff. Like Grand Seiko harvests their own quartz crystals.
yeah.
That it's
Crazy, bro.
crazy. Like so that to
They match it. They match it to the capacitor for a month to
hmm
ensure it freaking is in tune, and then it's thermal compensated quartz
hmm
movement. You know
it's
what I
like a
mean? It's got
high torque, so it's not
yeah,
the seconds hand isn't like ticking and then
dual pulse.
kind of going.
It's a
Yeah.
it's a dual pulse motor. It's got the anti backlash
Yes.
gear, so the
hmm
second hand doesn't go dong. It just goes
Yeah. That one
yeah,
that Alex has, that the
yeah.
black dial Grand Seiko Quartz GMT. I mean
Mhm.
that's on a short list for me. I certainly wouldn't mind having
Oh
one of those.
yeah, we'll talk real quick after this, because there's ways to get money off that piece,
Okay.
legitimate. But I don't like to give away too many sales secrets, because you know what I mean, like,
Sure.
you know. But
I'm
I'll hook
interested.
up one of the homies. Yeah, you can get around like, I mean, close to $500 off that thing if you play it right at the right time of the year and all that stuff. But no,
It's a good like
awesome pieces.
20% off.
Yeah, you can get quite a bit. I'll explain to you that after this.
Good deal.
Maybe I'll do a super chat live stream one time and give away that secret, but everybody's got to give me $1. I'm just kidding.
Mm.
No, it's awesome. So any parting shots, Ryan? Like, where can people find you? Is there anything you got in the works or anything any thank yous you'd like to give to anybody? Any shout outs or anything like that?
Yeah, certainly. So I'm on Instagram at Watch My Life. That's LYFE 13 on Instagram. That's my personal account. That's where you'll see all my watch stuff. I've got a professional account that's UX Outlaw. I'll give them a quick plug. I'm a ambassador for UXO Supplements. That's a veteran-owned
Nice.
supplement company out of Idaho. On top of being veteran-owned, they are a very high-quality supplement company. They third-party test all of their ingredients for banned substances, fillers, junk that you don't want to be putting in your body. And they've got patented ingredients, so their supplements are literally like unlike any others that
Oh
they've
wow.
patented their formulas. You can't get them anywhere else. And they do give back, well into they're still a relatively small supplement company.
Mhm.
They've just recently like moved out of operating in, like the owners' homes. They actually bought a warehouse space recently,
Oh
but
nice.
they give back like well into the 5 figures every year to like Mission 22 to help raise awareness for veteran suicide and hopefully help prevent it. Um, but yeah, I'm an ambassador for them. I have a promo code on my Instagram. If you're interested in trying their supplements, just shoot me a DM. And if anyone's interested in, if you have questions about the, personal training course, Army credentialing assistance, the National Guard in general, anything like that, feel free to shoot me a DM. I'll be happy to chat with you.
That's awesome. Oh man, I might have to get some. I'm going to get some supplements
Yeah,
because
we'll
I've been
talk
looking
after.
for a veteran-owned company because
Mm,
I go to GNC because they're in the exchange.
mm.
You know what I mean? Like, so no, that'd be cool. Well, Ryan, I appreciate you coming on, man. I really do. I feel like this is going to be helpful to anyone that's interested in the same path you are on. Like all guests on the show, open invitation for any watch chat you want to do one day. But we definitely got to rebook the Hire Our Hero stuff when you get done with that. I think that would be helpful to people too. And yeah. So I want to thank everyone for tuning in. Ryan, you got anything?
Not at all, man. Thanks so much for having me. I look forward to our future episodes on watches and Higher Heroes.
It's gonna be fun, man. It's gonna be fun. And thanks everyone for tuning in. And remember, at watchrolling.com, you make the watch. The watch doesn't make you.